The Doklam dispute is back in the news. No, there is no standoff yet, but what's happening now is perhaps even more serious, also detrimental to Indian interests. Bhutan appears to have shifted position. Its prime minister has made a statement and he said that China is party to the Doklam dispute, that China has a say on the fate of Doklam. And that's problematic. We'll discuss why. First, the facts. Doklam is part of Bhutan. It made headlines in 2017. Indian and Chinese troops were locked in a tense standoff. There's a territorial dispute over Doklam. The dispute is between China and Bhutan. So where does India come in? India's role is complicated. It doesn't claim Doklam, but it supports Bhutan's claim. In 2017, the dispute flared up. That's because the Chinese army tried to build a road through Doklam, and India intervened. For 73 days, Indian and Chinese troops were at loggerheads. Eventually, China blinked. India managed to push back the Chinese and to secure Bhutan's claim. But now the same Bhutan is giving legitimacy to China, it seems. And the Prime Minister's statement could fundamentally change the dispute. Listen to what Prime Minister Lotay Tshering said in an interview, and I'm quoting, "It is not up to Bhutan alone to solve the problem. There are three of us. There is no big or small country. There are three equal countries, each counting for a third." This statement has kicked up a storm. There are three of us, he says. There are three equal countries. He means Bhutan, China, and India. So he's giving China an equal say. And here's why that's problematic. Look at this map. This is Doklam. The Chinese call it Donglang. It is high up in the Himalayas in the northeast, a small area, less than 100 square kilometers, but strategically quite significant. Look at the location. Doklam is close to Tibet's Chumbi Valley, Bhutan's Ha Valley, and India's Sikkim. For centuries, Bhutan's herdsmen have used Doklam. It used to be a quiet grazing area. No one really bothered them until 1962. That's when China attacked. It launched a war against India. 1962 is when China's interests in Doklam began to change. Beijing said Doklam was a part of China, not a part of Bhutan, and Chinese troops started entering Bhutanese lands. In recent years, they've been more aggressive. The Chinese have ramped up their border infrastructure. The PLA has increased its presence in the Chumbi Valley, and all of it led to the standoff in 2017. In fact, let's go back to that map. In 2017, China showed up in this area with equipment. It wanted to build roads leading up to a critical zone, the Bhutanese army camp. It is near the Jampheri Ridge. Bhutan felt the heat, it dialed India, and India responded. 2 days after the Chinese troops showed up, India sent a few hundred troops. They entered Doklam, they stopped the construction, and that led to a standoff. It lasted for more than 2 months, but was finally settled peacefully. You could say the Chinese made a tactical retreat. But they've not given up on Doklam. They still want control for two reasons. Number one, it gives PLA strategic access. And number two, China has its eyes on a key ridge, a ridge that overlooks the Siliguri corridor. The area is also known as Chicken's Neck. It's a narrow stretch of land, but it's extremely important for India because this piece of land connects India to its northeastern states. And that is why China wants it. If China controls Doklam, Chinese forces will be positioned on higher ground, on a vantage point. They will be able to gather intelligence on India's military deployments. And in the event of a conflict, they could potentially threaten Indian supply routes. So Doklam is worth fighting for. And China's actions in 2017 were widely condemned. Here's what Bhutan said then in 2017. "The construction of the road inside Bhutanese territory is a direct violation of the agreements and affects the process of demarcating the boundary between our two countries." India too issued a warning to China, again from 2017. "Such construction would represent a significant change of status quo with serious security implications for India." Post-Doklam, we saw a thaw. Months after the standoff, India and China tried to re-engage. In 2018, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi traveled to Wuhan to meet Chinese President Xi Jinping. This was an informal summit. 1 year later, Xi Jinping traveled to India, to Mamallapuram in the southern state of Tamil Nadu. He met Modi again in an informal summit. The optics and optimism were hard to miss, but with China, these things tend to be short-lived. In 2020, Chinese troops returned to the border. They attacked Indian soldiers in eastern Ladakh. And that standoff is still not over. Both India and China have now deployed thousands of troops along the border. In Doklam, China has been working quietly behind the scenes. Earlier this year, a Bhutanese delegation visited China. They were there to discuss border disputes. And soon, Bhutan will have some visitors too. A Chinese technical team is scheduled to arrive. Bhutan's Prime Minister spoke about this too. And I have that quote. We do not encounter major border problems with China, but certain territories are not yet demarcated. We still have to discuss it and draw a line. So is this a reversal? Is this a shift in posture? Is Bhutan now denying the Chinese intrusions? And more importantly, where does this leave India? Bhutan's Prime Minister had a message for India too. Listen to what he said. India and China have problems all along their border. We are waiting to see how they resolve their differences. And what is New Delhi's response? India's External Affairs Minister spoke today at Network 18's Rising India event. He said engaging with China on border issues is still work in progress.
I met my counterpart in September 2020. He accepted that this was a dangerous situation. And since then, we've been trying to pull back the close-up deployments, not close-up deployments, the close-up forward deployments. But it can only be done if there is a mutual agreement. Now, this is still unfinished work. There are places where we have this forward deployments. We continue to work away at it.
The stakes are high. This is not just about countering China's expansionism. India's position as a net security provider for the region is also being put to the test. Will the shift by Bhutan shut India out of the discussions on Doklam? We'll be tracking this for you.